Hi there, friend. We're examining the characteristic of joy this week on Transforming the World. I'd like to ask a question that's not listed in the Disciples' Journal. Is it okay to tell God that your circumstances in life have robbed you of joy? Is it okay? Is it okay? Is it safe? Are we sinning if we go to God and say, "Look, my circumstances in life are too much, and they are robbing me of my joy"? Is that a sin? How should we respond when loss and suffering is more than we can bear? Is it okay for a Christian to become just as discouraged as Job? Let's talk about that today. I'll be right back. My name is Pastor Greg. You're watching Transforming the World. This guy in the Bible named Job loses everything, and I mean everything except for his wife. But if you know the story much, she wasn't a whole lot of help. Neither were his friends. They weren't a whole lot of help either. As Job was dealing with losses, um, he loses crops, he loses livestock, even his children end up dying, servants, you name it. And then eventually he loses his health. Job gets really sick. And at first, Job seemed to withstand all of this. His wife told him to curse God and die, and Job's like, "No, no, I will not." So he did not sin. He did not curse God in spite of the circumstances. But eventually it gets the best of him. And in chapter 3, you read where Job is. Job basically says, he pulls a George Bailey. I wish I'd never been born. Um, just all of his joy has been sucked away. And at the end of chapter 3, Job says this: "What I always feared has happened to me. What I dreaded has come true. I have no peace, no quietness. I have no rest. Only trouble comes." Job opened up to God. He was honest. What he had to endure was more than he could handle, and Job confesses that. So eventually, there in the book of Job, the man goes to God and says, I sure would like to know why I had to go through all of this, why this loss. His joy has been sucked away from him. And if you know the story of Job, you know that God never really gives him an answer. God never says, "Okay, Job, I'll fill you in. This is why you had to endure all this." Job's never given that answer, which brings Job to the point where he actually demands an answer from God. He said, "Lord, you owe me an answer." And it was at that point that Job crossed the line. So for you and I, even though we walk closely with God, even though we travel with God through the valley of the shadow of death, we are going to have moments when circumstances become more than we can handle. And we will struggle to maintain joy. We will. And what you need to understand, I think all of us need to understand, that it's not a sin to tell God that you're struggling. That's not a sin. In fact, you should be honest with God and ask Him for help. That's not a sin. It's not a sin to go to God and say, "This is tough. And this cup that you have asked me to carry is I just don't have it within me to do that." That's not sin. But I want to encourage you not to fall into Job's trap where you actually ask God to justify himself. Because it's important for us to remember he's God and we are not. So know, my friend, on those days when circumstances rob you of your joy, it is not wrong, it is not a sin to go to God and say, I can't deal with this. I can't handle this, Lord. Equip me to make it through these circumstances. Come alongside me, walk close to me, Lord. Be my strength when I need it the most. That's not a sin. That's showing your dependence and your reliance on your Heavenly Father when life is too difficult for you. But please don't fall into Job's trap, as if God owes you an answer. When you start going to God, asking God to justify his actions, that's where things begin to fall apart. So we'll continue to talk about joy tomorrow on Transforming the World. My name's Pastor Greg, and I'll talk to you then.